Jordan and its Hashemite monarchy have long been regarded as stable fixtures in a region often beset by political uncertainty. But King Abdullah II is under growing pressure to reboot a struggling economy, institute constitutional reform, and stand firm against a controversial US-Saudi scheme to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Reporter Nada Issa has been finding out why.
June 9th, 2019, King Abdullah of Jordan is marking the 20th anniversary of his ascension to the throne, and his loyal subjects have come out to celebrate. But away from the festivities, not everyone is happy. The Hashemite monarchy has ruled in Jordan since 1921, and the country has long been seen internationally as a calm oasis in a politically turbulent region. Recently, though, King Abdullah has come under immense domestic pressure to improve an ailing economy and implement democratic reforms. He's also now wrestling with a further problem: how to reconcile his country's interests with the so-called Deal of the Century, a controversial scheme devised by Saudi Arabia and US President Donald Trump to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
في ضغط على الأردن، في ضغط على الأردن، في ضغط عليه من الخارج، في ضغط عليه. لكن بالنسبة لي هذا خط أحمر وأنا بعرف الشعب معي.
These plans, or what's been leaked of them so far, are unlikely to prove popular here. The Hashemite dynasty, who claim their descent through Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, are custodians of Muslim sacred sites in Jerusalem. It's central to the monarchy's legitimacy. According to some reports, the deal of the century would involve King Abdullah rescinding that guardianship and Jordan absorbing more West Bank Palestinians, giving Israel near total control of occupied Palestine. And that, says the king, is unacceptable.
واجبنا نحمي المقدسات الإسلامية والمسيحية. في ضغط علينا صحيح، لكن بالنهاية الجواب رح يكون كلا. أنا مش شايف إنه بيقدر يضغطوا علينا، لأنه كل الأردنيين على موضوع القدس وقفوا مع بعض.
But with the plan's backers threatening to withhold critical financial aid unless King Abdullah falls into line, and with many of his subjects already in economic distress after years of austerity, it's a dilemma with no easy answers. We're in Jordan to try and understand the political pressures the monarchy is now under and where they might lead. We also want to know how the scheme could affect Jordan's delicate demographic balance between the members of its indigenous tribes, known as East Bankers, and Palestinians who fled here in the past 6 decades and became citizens. Our first stop is at the home of Tariq Tell, a professor of modern Jordanian history.
Jordan is becoming less relevant, but it's still very important for the United States as a source of intelligence and of security support, which the Americans have relied on heavily for getting on for 60 years now. Let's assume that a deal of the century does occur. The danger for Jordan would come if, say, the Trump administration used Jordan's fiscal dependence on American aid and on Gulf aid to push Jordan forward as an alternative, a kind of neo-Jordan option. Then you will get a reaction among the East Bankers, and given the fact that they dominate the means of coercion, that could be very politically destabilizing indeed. The imposition of austerity, of course, has led to a contraction of the kind of militarized welfare state on which the population depended, And it's this contraction which is causing discontent in the peripheries. People are no longer getting the opportunities that their fathers got, and therefore they're beginning to protest.
Those protests are becoming more common and more vocal. For months now, there have been regular demonstrations across the capital, Amman.
This is the week number 22nd for our demonstration on the 4th circle.
Hind al-Fayez is from Jordan's influential Beni Sakhir tribe, a former MP and one of the organisers of the Hirak protest movement. We caught up with her on the way to an evening rally.
People, they know now that the unemployment and the poverty is consequences for wrong decisions. And we're there to ask the king, we have to share the decision in order for us to accept the consequences. We're not asking for coup d'etat. We're not asking for the king to leave the country. We're not asking that Jordan will no longer be a monarchy.
Protesters at this event insisted the country's current problems will only get worse if the deal of the century is implemented.
مؤامرة على الأردن مؤامرة على الإنسان الأردني على العشائر الأردنية.
Some tribal Jordanians are worried that the deal would further erode their influence in the country. Jordan has seen a huge influx of Syrian refugees in recent years, adding to millions of Palestinians already here. And the prospect of more West Bank Palestinians coming threatens to further upset the demographic scales.
هامش رسالة تهديد إلى إسرائيل إنه لا تحلم بسقط القرن ولا تحلم وطن بديل كل حلم له كابوس وهاي حطيها ببالك إنه الشعب الأردني راح يكون كابوس حلمك إسرائيل.
The authorities are being forced to respond to the darkening public mood. While we were filming, news came through that the cabinet had resigned. It was the third government reshuffle in less than a year, and the protesters were unimpressed.
تغيير النهج هو اللي بهمنا حتى لو بقيت حكومة الرزاز بجميع وزرائها غير معنيين احنا بدنا تغيير النهج نفسه اللي عم بتمشي فيه الدولة طريقة السياسة بالبلد.
It's a sign of how sensitive all these matters are becoming that Jordan's intelligence services pay very close attention to who is saying what at these protest rallies. One of the more intimidating tactics is to surround the most vocal demonstrators and any journalists who may be listening and openly film them. The state is clearly uneasy about the many disparate voices now being raised in opposition. Jordanians have traditionally been supportive of the monarchy and the stability it brings, but for some, that support is proving to be conditional. Another day, another demo, albeit more modest. We've come to see Ahmed Awaidi Abbadi. He's a controversial figure in Jordan. Like Hind al-Fayez, whom we met earlier, he's a former MP and a tribal leader with strong views. What's different is that he's an unashamed anti-monarchist. Today he's wearing his traditional headdress inside out, as a form of protest.
80% of the land is taken in the name of the military, which means automatically in the name of the king.
Abbadi and the others here are protesting what they see as land confiscation by the state. He shows us a map, which he claims represents the division of Jordan amongst its tribes in 1917, before the Hashemite monarchy took power. Abbadi claims much of that land is now populated with refugees from the region, which make up more than half of the country's population.
Calling for the return of land. But hasn't the whole Jordanian population changed since 1917? So now you have tribes.
It is changed by ignorance. In Jordan, the tribes have the legality and the power. We have the power and the legality. The others are employees. Employees, they take their legality and power from the state.
And so what happens then to Jordanians who don't belong to the major tribes, West Bankers?
This will be subject to negotiations.
By questioning the legitimacy of the monarchy, Abedi is also challenging the validity of many of its policies. This includes giving citizenship to anyone who settled here after 1917. Among them, millions of Palestinians and their descendants forced to flee from their homeland from 1948 onwards. In truth, of course, those Palestinians have long since been absorbed into the framework of the country, and Jordan's current economic problems are affecting everyone, whatever their origins or place in society. Nowhere is impoverishment more obvious than in the Jordan Valley, the breadbasket of the country, but also home to some of its most vulnerable citizens. We've come to meet some of the poorest families in the valley, some of whom live in these primitive subsidized houses on small plots of land, part of the now crumbling state welfare system. Maysa Johar is a mother of 5. Her husband is a day labourer who works an average of 2 days a week. Maysa is eligible for state-funded maintenance of her home, but she's been waiting months for essential repairs.
يعني هيدا السقف فيه يسقط بأي وقت.
هي نص واقع فوق كله فوق البوفيه تراب طوليا نص تراب من فوق بيطلع فوق.
ما بتخافي الأولاد؟
لا ما بفوتهم.
So she's just explaining that these are parts of the ceiling that have been falling down.
Basma Barhoum, a grandmother of 8 who collects scrap metal for a living, is trying to expand her home but cannot do so.
11 نفر عندي بالبيت، حمام ما يوجد عندهم، ما في ساكنين على التراب، ما بي أي شيء يعني عندهم. ترك مدارس من يعني إنه نقدر نصرف عليهم أو نعطيهم مصروف الصبح.
The 2-room home where Basma, her son and his family live is built on a welfare plot. She needs to fix up her home but can't get any more government support.
هاي الدار زي ما شفتي، هاي الوضع زي ما أنت شايفيته، يعني وضع مأساوي بالمرة. يوم بوفر له الأكل يوم ما فيش أكل. هاي خبز حاليا أقسم بالله ما في. خبز على أساس يتغدوا ما عندهم.
قلتي لي بعد الأولاد يلي
ما في والله بس البنت، لأنه البنت هاي مريولها ما شاء الله عليها. بس أنا حاس فيها. يعني البنت لما بدها تروح على المدرسة مفروض بدل المريول يكون لها 2 بصير لها راحة إنها تدرس بصير لها راحة إنها لها نفس بس لما تروح على المدرسة مصروف ما معها.
Many vulnerable families rely on social workers, like Waad Mahmoud. Today she is delivering food to those in need.
البيتين اللي احنا زرناهم اليوم وشفنا وضعهم بشكل عام، الاشي اللي شفتوه انه لدرجة انه كيف عايشين، ما في اي خدمة، ما في حتى امان لهم. في منهم كثير، يعني في نسبة كثير كبيرة من هاي النوعية من الناس. تقريبا في بعض المناطق بيكون النسبة كثير عالية، يعني احنا في مناطق في الأردن تعد أشد فقرا، بنحكي عن النص بالنص 50% يعني بجميع بشكل عام على الأردن، تقسيم الأردن إنه في فقر.
Back in Amman, the economic problems behind some of the poverty we've just witnessed are getting an airing on national radio. Journalist Muhammad Irsan is interviewing MP Saleh Al-Armouti of the Islamic Action Front, one of Jordan's leading political parties.
احنا لازم نوصلها هذه المسألة وهذا تقصير
لحد الآن ضغوطات وجوع وفقر وحرمان ومديونية تجاوز 28 مليار دينار أردني، يعني بيطلع كل مواطن بسمعني ما لا يقل عن 6000 دينار مديونية.
الأردن تعتمد على المساعدات الأمريكية بنسبة كبيرة جدا، 70% من المساعدات الخارجية أمريكية، مليار و500 مليون تقريبا. وأيضا هناك دول عربية كان لها يد في حصار الأردن اقتصاديا.
صحيح.
ألا تخشى أن يتم استغلال الوضع الاقتصادي للأردن للضغط عليه؟
صحيح، موقف دول عربية تتآمر، كثير من الدول العربية الأردن أوقفت المساعدات، لكن في عندي بدائل. أنا بفتح قنواتي الآن، بفتح على تركيا، بفتح على قطر، بفتح على إيران رغم خلافي معها، بفتح على روسيا، بفتح على الصين.
It's a theme Mohammed Irsan has heard many times. He routinely covers stories about pressure on public spending, inadequate state income, and government financial mismanagement.
مع تردي الأوضاع الاقتصادية، وأنا أتحدث عن شخصيات وحركات عشائرية الآن دخلت على الخط بقوة بعد الربيع العربي بدافع الوضع الاقتصادي. العشائر وجدت نفسها وظروف اقتصادية سيئة، أبنائها متعطلين عن العمل، تآكل بالطبقة الوسطى، فذهبوا إلى الاحتجاجات، دخلوا دائرة الاحتجاجات. ندفع هذا الكم من الضرائب، لا نرى خدمات، إذن أين تذهب النقود؟ في الحقيقة تذهب لسد عجوزات هائلة بالموازنة. والسؤال لماذا هذا العجز الكبير بالموازنة؟ 80% من الموازنة تذهب إلى رواتب وإنفاق حكومي، هناك ترهل حكومي، هنالك بطالة مقنعة، هناك إنفاق هائل غير مبرر. الحكومة الأردنية تنفق كأنها في دولة خليجية.
During the 2011 Arab Spring, Jordanian protesters chanted not for revolution, but for reform. One of the demonstrators in 2011 was Muthanna Ghreibi, who joined fellow protesters in Amman in support of revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia. Today he is Minister of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship.
We have been asking for so many things, and the regime was very open to listen and to take people in. We were talking about proper parliamentarian representation, and there is lots of discussion about the election law and whatever. To be honest, it's not my priority right now. My priority right now is to create jobs. Change only happens out of engagement, and engagement requires hope, and hope requires jobs. We were talking about efficiency of the public sector. And this is something we're working right now, working in digitizing the governmental services. We're making minimum human interaction with the government employees to cut the corruption, to cut the bribes and everything.
As our interview concludes, Ghreibi heads off to the royal court. The latest government reshuffle means he has to be sworn in again as a minister, something of a regular duty these days. While Jordan is in theory a parliamentary democracy, government ministers are actually appointed by King Abdullah. Many Jordanian politicians believe the government should be elected by parliament, something the king has yet to fully endorse. In the meantime, calls for reform are growing. MP Dima Tahboub is one of several female members of the Islamic Action Front, which has a 15% share of seats in the legislature. She argues that accountability takes time.
I'm not a supporter of the government. I oppose the government, but I do respect the pillars that Jordan has been, set on. So we, as an Islamic Action Front, we know that the reform starts beyond the royal family. We need to put the grounds for parliamentary governments, and then the king would be totally unaccountable for anything and, beyond criticism at any time. And this is what we want, a kind of like, for example, the monarchy in Britain, so to speak.
But would such gradual reform satisfy the king's fiercest critics? Anti-monarchist former MP Ahmed Awaidi Abbadi, who was taking us out to see his tribe's land, said he didn't believe it would be enough. And he's previously been imprisoned and beaten for saying so.
The land of the tribes is not from the king, nor from the Hashemite. It is our land. They came to us, we didn't go to them. The right of being employees, this is our right because this is our country and it should be assumed to be our state.
Who will be leading the state?
By election. By election.
So you want a republic?
Yes, of course.
So what about some of Jordan's other tribes? About an hour south of Amman lies Thiban, home to the Bani Hamida, one of the largest and poorest such groupings in the country. Back in 2011, Thiban was the flashpoint for protests that took place during the Arab Spring. Farmer Mohammed Sneid is a Bani Hamida tribesman who has previously been imprisoned for opposing government policies.
يعني احنا من البداية تأسيس الدولة كانوا الأردنيين موجودين في بلدهم وبالتالي مؤسسات الدولة عمل على خط أبناء العشائر اللي كانوا يشتغلوا بالزراعة. وخلق البديل اللي هو الجيش، الشغل بالجيش والمؤسسات الأمنية والوظائف الحكومية. الآن اتجه نحو الخصخصة وترك هذه المناطق دون تنمية.
Sneid took us to an evening gathering with other government opponents.
صرنا نبيع الأرض عشان ندرس أولادنا. درسنا أولادنا الآن لا ظل عندنا أراضي ودرسنا أولادنا ووقفوا التعيين بوظائف الحكومة. تعيين ما فيه إلا لعلية القوم فقط.
بس القطاع العام كتير كبير في الأردن.
القطاع العام في الأردن الآن الخدمي ناتج عن غياب التنمية، وهذا فشل بالسياسات الحكومية السابقة وفشل النظام في خلق حالة تنمية.
بال 2011 لما طلعنا كحراك شعبي كانت مديونية الأردن 9 مليار.
واليوم قد ايه؟
في روايتين، رواية تقول 30 مليار ورواية تقول 80 مليار، والله ما نعرف قديش، ما بنعرف، ما بنقدر نسأل، بننسجن.
Meanwhile, back in the capital, the regular demonstrations continue. A week after this protest took place, Hind Al-Faiz was arrested on tax evasion charges. A neighbour captured her arrest on her smartphone. She was released after 24 hours in detention. In a later press conference at her office, she presented proof that she had in fact paid her taxes and claimed the government was using trumped-up charges to silence her politically.
لما كنت أسأل هاي الأسئلة تصير المعركة علينا، طول ما أنت ساكت أنت أمورك تمام، بس اوعك تنكش عش الدابير. لا أنا بدي أنكش عش الدابير لأنه ما في إشي اسمه كبير إلا الوطن.
Jordan and its monarchy seem to be at a crossroads. Although it is important not to exaggerate its significance, the growing disaffection we've heard about and seen expressed in the regular demonstrations here is getting harder for the government to ignore. Bedouins, farmers and urban activists are all now demanding reforms from their king and won't go away. If you add to this mix the possibly toxic consequences of the US-Saudi plan to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, then you have challenges that the Hashemite monarchy will struggle hard to overcome.